Akram here, and I'm going to share with you how to use the Loft command in 3ds Max. I have a scene here where I have been creating objects using spline modeling. I have a slice of bacon that we drew an outline of and extruded. I also have both a plate and a mug that I created using a lathe. So if we take the mug here, for example, and I go to my Modify tab and the modifier list, you can see that I have a lathe and a line. If I turn off the lathe for a moment, you will see the shape that I created in order to create that mug. And if I turn the lathe back on, it takes that shape and it extrudes it around a 360 area. So that is how I created the mug, and I did the same thing with the plate. Now that we have our mug, it would be nice to create some sort of handle for our mug. And there are different ways to do this, but if we're working with spline modeling, one of the things that we can do is create a loft. So the way a loft works is it extrudes a shape along a path. So you need 2 items for this. If you'll notice in my top view here, I have this sort of jelly bean style shape, which is the top section view of the handle shape. So this is what my handle is going to look like from the top perspective. And I need to get this handle to extrude along a path. And in my front view over here, I have created sort of this ear type shape coming out from the mug itself. And this is the path that loft is going to extrude that shape along. When preparing lofts, you want to keep in mind that your path should not be an enclosed spline. Now, to create a loft, you're going to go over to your Create tab. Currently, I'm under the Shapes tab and I'm looking at splines, but I'm going to click on the Geometry tab. And typically when you click on geometry, you're going to see your standard primitives. But if I click the drop down, you can see that I have a couple of different things that I can create with geometry. One of which is compound objects. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose whether I want to select the shape or the path first. I want to choose whichever item is in the position where I want the end result to be. And in my case, my path is actually drawn along the location that I want the handle to be in. So I'm going to select the handle. I'm going to go over to the compound objects and I'm going to select Loft. And down here at the bottom, it's going to have the creation method. And it's going to ask if you want to get the path or if you want to get the shape. I already have the path selected, so I want to get the shape. The second thing that you want to be aware of is how do you want to get that shape? Do you want to copy the shape to the path? Do you want to create an instance of it? Or do you just want to move the current shape? And I actually just want to move the shape of the mug outline to the location of the path. So I'm going to do Get Shape, and in the front view, this little purple line down here is my shape. So I'm going to do that, select it, and you can see instantly, if I scroll down to perspective view here and rotate around, I have my mug handle right there. So now that we have our handle for our mug, we can do a little bit more refining. You'll notice if I zoom in here, the handle actually sticks out a little bit from the mug, and we don't want that to happen. So now that I have the actual 3D geometry, just like we manipulated vertices in 2D, you can do that in 3D. So I'm going to select my mug handle. I'm going to go to the Modify tab, and right now you'll see that I'm no longer looking at a line, no longer looking at Editable spline. I am looking at a loft because it combines those objects into a single loft object. And in order to manipulate the vertices, I'm going to add a modifier to this, and the modifier that I'm going to use is an editable mesh. And remember, this is now a 3D object, so we don't want to use editable spline, and you'll notice that editable spline is not even an option, but I'm going to use editable mesh, and just like with the editable spline, I have options for vertices. In this case, I have edges, faces, polygons, and elements, so I can go a couple of different levels down in the selection. In my case, I'm only going to do vertices. I'm going to zoom up here in the front view, view, and I'm going to select with a window crossing, click and drag to do a window crossing, select just that top row of vertices. And again, in this front view, you can see how my mug handle extends beyond the actual cup portion of the mug. So I'm going to go into my rotate tool. I'm going to rotate those vertices up, and I'm going to go into the move tool, and I'm going to bring those in a little bit, and I'm going to rotate them ever so slightly more so they don't protrude out of the mug itself. So I got that bottom set. I'm going to go up to the top set. It's not as bad up here at the top, but I could do a little tweaking. I can hold down the control key to do multiple crossings so I can get all the vertices on that level. And I just need to do a minor rotate on that one. I'm going to click off of it. I can keep eye in my other views to make sure that the mug handle doesn't protrude out of the actual cup into the center of the cup. So I'm keeping it within this 3D geometry here. I'm going to turn off a vertice mode so that I can stop editing that loft, and I'm going to click on the color of the object, and I'm going to change its color to match the color of my mug here so that it looks like it belongs together. So while these two objects look like they are together, if I go in here and start editing and I decide that I want to, say, move my mug, then the handle's not going to go with it. And in this case, we actually want this to work as a single object. So I can take my mug here. You'll notice in the modifier tab, I've already renamed it mug. And I can add an editable mesh to this. Editable mesh. And I can attach other objects to it. So I can click attach, and then I can click on my loft. Notice that they are both highlighted now in the front view. So if I uncheck attach, come back into one of my views and move the mug, it now moves as a whole. So it moves together. You'll also notice that the original path for the loft is still in the background here. That is because it is still there as a reference. We don't necessarily need that anymore, so we can delete it from our scene. So I'll just hit delete there. And then I can place my mug in the placement that I want to use. So that's a quick example of using splines to create a shape, a path, and combine them using the Loft tool in order to create 3D geometry. Also using editable mesh to edit that geometry after the fact and to attach geometry together. I hope you found this lesson informative. And don't forget to check out other lessons and tutorials on the channel. So what are you waiting for? Get creative today.